After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, gang? Welcome to another show, another episode of Habs After Dark. Another victory for the Montreal Canadiens. Their record improves to 6-2. Another overtime victory. Another game where there's probably a lot to talk about. A game where perhaps the Canadiens got a better result than maybe they deserved. But that's that is what it is. Sometimes you need to win games that you don't perhaps deserve. And tonight, I think that Jakub Dobeš was the savior for the Canadiens. He was definitely the best player for them. And if it wasn't for him, then they likely, wouldn't have been walking away from this game with a 2-1 overtime victory. That said, things could have gone badly for the Flames early on, and the game could have been out of reach after the first period if it were not for the play of Dustin Wolf, who, while he made fewer saves than Jakub Dobeš tonight, he certainly made some very, very nice ones. So, again, welcome to the show. Bienvenue tout le monde à l'émission. C'est une émission bilingue pour tout le monde, pour les partisans des Canadiens, pour les partisans de hockey. Si vous voulez parler au sujet de la game ce soir entre les Canadiens et les Flames de Calgary, ou si vous voulez parler au sujet de votre équipe, on va parler premièrement au sujet du match des Canadiens ce soir, mais aussi on va parler de l'équipe en général, et aussi on va aussi parler au sujet du hockey en général si vous avez des questions, des commentaires. Welcome to the show, guys. If you have questions or comments, feel free to post them in the comment section. If you're over on TikTok, come and join us over on YT. This is where the show is live. I will leave the feed open on TikTok, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to address any of your questions over there. Canadiens with a 2-1 win. Welcome to the show. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. Hit the subscribe button down below, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching us on a replay after the fact. If you're, it's 1:45 here in Nova Scotia, so it is a bit of a late night with the Canadiens being on the West Coast. So I certainly understand those who are not able to watch live. But if you are watching tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, or taking a break from work and sitting around, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you join our family. And if you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. We try and bring you some objective, fun, intelligent conversation about hockey and the Montreal Canadiens. So if that's interesting to you, if that interests you, then feel free to hit that subscribe button and join the Recliner Sports community. We got some questions or some comments. I want to talk with you guys. I'm looking to have a conversation with you guys. I'm not looking to talk at you. I do have some prepared content, and I will get to that. But the show is always better when you guys are participating. So I will definitely look forward to doing that. So let's get to the first question. First of all, Fitness King 101, welcome to the show. Flames seems to need rebuild. Too many older players with big expensive contracts that don't do much, can't move them because no trade or no move clause. I mean, I can't profess to know any of the details or great details about the contractual situation of many of the Calgary Flames players. I don't disagree with your assessment that they perhaps need to move on from some of their older players and focus a little bit on developing their younger guys. They do have some good young players, really young guys like Zane Parak and Gridin. I don't know how to say his name. But then they've got some guys like Matt Coronado as well, who are good. So, again, for me, if you're going to rebuild, I think you really have to take it seriously and have to do it, full out. You can't sort of half-ass a rebuild. So for me, I think if they are going to rebuild, they do have to tear things down to the studs and then, do a real focus on their younger players, right? I mean, again, I'm not, people will say I'm being biased with the Montreal Canadiens, and perhaps I am, but again, I think the Montreal Canadiens have, created a model for how to do a rebuild properly in the NHL, and it's something that you really have to commit to. It's not something you can do like a partial rebuild or a retool or whatever. I think that, if you're going to rebuild, you got to rebuild. McPhilly, I think that's you, Hexy, is it not, Mr. McPhilly? Pretty happy the Flames took Frost and Farabee off your team's hands. Yeah, I mean, they didn't look great tonight. I know Farabee missed. Farabee, I don't think played the entire game. I believe he came out injured at one point. Um, it's, I don't know. I don't watch those guys enough. I thought Frost, I always thought of Frost as being a decent player, but, um, you know, you know better than I do, having probably watched the guy play for quite some time. So, Fitness King, I have a feeling a lot of different teams will be in the playoffs this year. I think, especially in the East, I think you're going to see a little bit of a changing of the guard. I said that. I said that earlier. I said that earlier. I thought that there's always surprises, but I also think there's a couple of teams that I think are kind of aging out a little bit. Whether that happens right away or whether that takes a little bit of time, we shall see. Good to see you, Hexy. Thank you for popping by. It's always nice to see you. Bushy is one of our big contributors over on the TikTok. We go live on TikTok, guys, during the game, and then after the game is over, we go live here on YT on YouTube. If you want to check us out here, then you got to come over here. If you want to check us out during the game, then you have to go over there. So, Bushy says, any thoughts on Joshua Roy's game? What does he need to do to keep his spot on the lineup? I thought Joshua Roy was pretty quiet tonight. I didn't really notice him good or bad, which probably is not a good sign for him. Probably not a bad sign for him, but it's probably not a good sign either. I'm just going to try and bring up his numbers here. Expected goals for percentage tonight for Joshua Roy was fairly low at 34-27. That whole line, him with Bolduc and Veleno, he only had about 8 minutes of ice time. Not ideal. What did he have? Get some stats here. 3 on the ice for 3 scoring chances for, and 4 scoring chances against. So, I don't think it was a great performance from him. I would have hoped that there would have been a little bit more chemistry between him and Bolduc. But again, it's hard when you're on a line with Roy and Bolduc, and then you add Veleno to the mix. It's not exactly putting you in a great position to succeed. So I would say I would give him a 6 out of 10 for tonight's game. Probably not good enough for him to earn a full-time spot on the lineup. I mean, for him to earn a full-time spot on the lineup, he's got to be in there ahead of a lot of guys. And Kirby Dach is getting ready to come back into the lineup, and I think he's probably going to be out of luck once that happens. So, am I surprised at the Red Wings being at the top of the division? Yeah. I mean, I think anybody would be surprised by that. I don't think anybody can legitimately say they expected Detroit to be that good. Entertap says 2 points is 2 points. I couldn't agree more, Entertap. And it's, I guess there's different ways of looking at it. Obviously, this is a game where the Canadiens probably got a better result than they deserved. But at the same time, those were games that they probably would have lost in years past. So in one sense, I guess you can point to a level of maturity in a game like that where they were able to, win despite not playing their best hockey. But on the other hand, you could maybe point to a lack of maturity in the sense that, they didn't put together a full 60 minutes, which, that lack of consistency, that lack of full effort, or that full 60-minute effort is, perhaps a sign of some immaturity. But again, in an 82, soon to be 84 game season, those are games that are going to happen. So, another good question from Entertap here. Thoughts on why Demidov's time on ice is not greater? I do have some thoughts on it. I mentioned this during the game on the TikTok feed about, I think that if I have a complaint about Marty St. Louis, and I don't have very many, I think he struggles with the unknown. Can I say that? I mean, what I mean by that is like he struggles. He doesn't allow much experimentation. He did earlier, like earlier when he first started with the Canadiens, when the team was in full rebuild mode, like early stages of the rebuild, and they were developing some of the younger players. He was willing to give those young players more opportunities. Even though it might put the team at risk of losing or giving up a goal or whatever. He wanted to give those players that experience. But now he's at the point now, I think, where he feels a little bit more pressure to win games, and so he's less likely. He's more risk averse, and he's less likely to give players opportunities that might make him feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that's we saw that last year with Lane Hudson. Lane Hudson took that mantle pretty quickly and forced him to play him. I think we see it with the power play. I think that there was a stated goal at one point about the power play wanting to have two strong units, but at the same time, he wanted to have two strong units, but he was playing the first unit like a minute and a half out of because he was comfortable with the first unit, right? We heard same thing with Mike Matheson, right? We heard that he was trying to lessen the workload on Mike Matheson this year, and less ice time, less responsibility, and what have you. And that was kind of what they did for the first 2 or 3 games. But now, as soon as Gouli comes out of the lineup, last night Matheson played more than 26 minutes. Tonight he played 24 minutes. So again, getting back to your question, Intertap, I think for me, it's about him. It's about him, like not being not he. He gets really comfortable with people that he's familiar and comfortable with, right? He knows guys that he can, the risk is minimal when he puts them on the ice, and he feels comfortable putting them out there, and he goes back and back and back and back to them. And for him to change those, those habits, I think he struggles to change those habits, if that makes any sense. Do I just watch Montreal? Do I watch most hockey teams, study other teams, etc.? Enjoy hockey as a whole. I enjoy hockey as a whole. I like watching a lot of hockey. I mean, to be fair, time kind of limits my ability to watch a lot of other teams. I do watch them when I can, but I mean, the Canadiens are on pretty much every second night. And, between that and watching some of the other stuff that goes along with the Canadiens, whether it's, the post-game stuff or the podcast or whatever, I don't feel comfortable enough to speak, with any level of expertise about a lot of the other teams. Tristan, Dobesh, Hudson, Caulfield, Demidov. We will see. We'll get there. We'll get there. Fitness King is a Vancouver guy, and he studies a lot of other teams. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know enough about other teams just because I follow hockey closely enough. But again, I'm a kind of guy who I'm not a big fan of speaking about things that I don't really know about, and unless I'm comfortable offering an opinion on something, I'm probably not going to do it. And so, I hesitate to do that. I'll speak in general terms, but I'll certainly let you know that I perhaps, I'm not the most knowledgeable guy. Entertap, Slavkovsky, Dobesh, Matheson, and Suzuki, all good choices too. We will see. We'll get to the A team here in a second. You also think LA will defeat Dodgers this year? LA and the Dodgers are the same team. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Fitness King. Yeah, absolutely. Entertab struggles with the unknown. I think it's not just the unknown. I think it's more about he gets really comfortable with certain situations that make him feel comfortable, I guess. But yeah, I think we're on the same path. Rocky says Dobesh. Yes, that's a nice, quick, short and sweet comment, but it says it all. Hexy, aka Mr. McPhilly, wants to know, and he is a Philadelphia Flyers fan, wants to know if Suzuki should be on Team Canada, and he says that he would have him on his team. I mean, there's a lot of good players available to play for Team Canada. I personally think that I got you, Fitness King. I knew it was a typo. I was just messing with you. And yes, I do miss the Montreal Expos. I would have him on my team. I think he's a top 10 centerman in the NHL right now. I think his all-around game is elite. Not only is it elite, but it also is valuable when it comes to a tournament like the Olympics or any short tournament like that, where it's always good to have players who you can plug into different roles. Um, you know, Suzuki could be a guy who you put on a line with a couple of scorers, and you know that would be great. But he's also a guy who you could put on a line with a couple of shutdown guys, right? You could put him out there with Crosby and McKinnon, or you could put him out there with, Sorelli and whoever, right? He could play either of those roles, and that's the kind of guy that there's a lot of value in guys like that when you get to a tournament like that. Uh, all right, guys, I'm going to get to the scoreboard here. I know we got a lot of questions, but I'm going to do the scoreboard here real quick. Fortunately, maybe there's not a ton to talk about on the scoreboard tonight. Of course, as I mentioned, c'est une victoire de 2-1 pour le Canadien en prolongation. 2-1 win for the Canadiens over the Flames in overtime. The scoring opened on the power play, 17:09 of the first period. Zachary Bolduc on a nice play from Suzuki and Hudson. They finally got that bumper play to work, right? Bolduc parked at in the high slot. Suzuki got him the puck, and again, that great shot that we've heard about from Bolduc. Quick release, he got it away, and the Canadiens took the lead. Really good period for the Canadiens, really good first period. As has been their habit, they came out strong, and they dominated the play for the first period. And then again, as has been their habit, they kind of went to sleep in the second period, dominated in that second period. The Canadiens, the shots were 10-9 for the Canadiens in that first period, which isn't an indication. I think they were certainly better than that. But in the second period, the Flames outshot them 18-9. Canadiens were very fortunate to come out of that second period with no goals against and to maintain their 1-0 lead. And certainly Jakub Dobeš was a huge part of that. He definitely held them in the game in that second period. Third period, again, the Canadiens didn't look great early on, but they were holding their own. Again, Dobeš was holding down the fort, and then there was a miscue, if we want to call it that, from Noah Dobson. He coughed up the puck. He was the last man back, and it sent in, I think, is it Adam Klapka? I don't even know what his first name is. Klapka went in unassisted and was able to beat a surprise Dobeš, who probably, wasn't really expecting that play. It was a quick turnover in the Canadian zone, and Klapka beat Dobeš at 5:56 of the third period, and that tied the game at 1. The Canadiens did put some pressure on late in the third period, but they certainly weren't able to tie the game, or sorry, to win the game in regulation. The game went to overtime. The Canadiens started with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Hudson on the ice to start the game. The Canadiens won the opening faceoff, carried the puck. Caulfield had a nice opportunity, I guess, on that first shift and shot the puck over the net. The Canadiens maintained possession. Demidov and Newhook came on for Caulfield and Suzuki, and then Matheson came on to replace Lane Hudson. Demidov got the puck from Newhook, went down low, held the puck, a lot of patience, a lot of really good vision. Matheson kind of snuck in back door. Demidov saw him, made the pass, and Matheson basically just had to put the puck in the back of the net from the offside position. Really, I mean, again, a spectacular play from Demidov. Great vision, great creativity, great patience. Well beyond his years, what you would expect from the kid, and another great play by him. And again, I just the sky's the limit for that kid. I think one of the things I've really noticed about this team is just the depth of skill they have now, right? They have all the skill that they need. They just need to work. I mean, Marty St. Louis talks about it all the time, right? You need to work on the details. You need to be a good systems player. You have to do the ordinary things in order to be able to do the extraordinary things. And, Ivan Demidov is certainly able to do extraordinary things And now the Canadiens just need to work on being able to do all those little systems things that allow them to not have to win their games in overtime. This is of their 6 wins this year, 3 of them are in overtime. So it is what it is. Corsi tonight again demonstrates that the Flames did dominate the second and third period. The Corsi is 75-48. Demonstrating that the Flames did have more opportunities, more shots towards the net, more puck possession. Shots on goal, 37-28 in favor of the Flames. The hits were 23-17 in favor of the Flames, so they were a little bit more physical than Montreal. The face-off wins were pretty close, which is surprising because early in the game, even in the first period when the Canadiens were dominating, the Flames were really dominating the face-off circle. High danger chances. I'm not sure I agree. This number seems a little high to me. 13-5 in favor of Calgary, and the expected goals were 3.12 to 2.20. So again, we see another two saves or 2 goals saved above expected for Jakub Dobeš tonight. Right, the expected goals are over 3, and yet he only allowed 1. So it is what it is, right? So that's another good performance by Dobeš. Back-to-back starts for him. I don't think we're at the point now where we're talking about him being the number 1 goalie. However, I think it's great that the Canadiens have a strong enough backup that they can give their backup a lot more starts than they were able to last year. Right at this point last year. It was there wasn't really much of an option at backup. Caden Primo struggled out of the gate, and up until Christmas when he got sent down to Laval, Montembeault had to carry the load. There were a number of back-to-backs where Montembeault played both, and so the fact that they've got 2 goalies who can go in on any given night and give them a win is certainly a positive. Tristan F says, I'm struggling to see why that Evans line is playing so much. I get it for the PK or when you're winning, but Demidov should be averaging more minutes than a guy like Anderson. Well, it's what I just talked about, in regard to Entertap's question, right? Marty St. Louis feels really comfortable with those guys on the ice, and the reason he feels really comfortable with those guys on the ice is because he knows they're not going to do anything dumb, right? He knows they're not going to make any mistakes. They're not going to. They're not going to give anything up, and maybe they'll get a chance to score. So, that's kind of like that's a comfort zone for a coach, right? Those guys are good players. They're not the most offensively talented guys in the world, but certainly putting them over the boards, he knows that they're not going to give up much. And those guys will play against anybody on the other team. They can shut down the other team's really good players. Whereas if you put, a bunch of rookies on the ice, if you put Demidov out there with Newhook and Kapanen, then yeah, those guys have more potential to score and more potential to produce offense, but they also have more potential to turn the puck over or to make a mistake or to not be as good within the system, as those other guys are. So, there's a comfort in putting, 3 veterans like Anderson, Gallagher, and Evans out there, right? And that's what I talked about earlier, right? Marty St. Louis likes that comfort. Is it selfish of me, Entertap says, to not want too many Habs making Olympic teams? I'd rather have them fresh for the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I guess, in a way, yes. But I think it's also, I think it's in the long run, it's probably a good thing for these guys to get those opportunities to be at that level. I mean, if you're creating, a Stanley Cup contending team, you're creating guys who are going to be playing in those kind of events. And I think in the long run, that's probably a good thing. When Patrick Roy left his final game as Montreal goalie, nobody tried to stop him from going to the Avs. It was a blunder letting him go. Well, I don't think that's exactly how it happened, Fitness King. it's, I mean, I don't know how old you are. I don't know whether you were around when that happened, but I mean, there was nothing really to stop him. I mean, how were you going to stop him? He came off the ice. He walked up to the owner of the team and told him it was the last game I'll ever play in Montreal. And Mario Tremblay wasn't exactly the most even-keeled human being in the world. He had a bit of an ego as well, and there really was no other option. Patrick Roy wasn't staying, and it was what it was. I mean, as far as trying to stop him from going to the Avs, I don't know what could have been done. I mean, the blunder was leaving him in the net for 8 goals against Detroit, and hurting his feelings, and having his ego. I mean, Patrick Roy had an ego too, and it wasn't. Mario Tremblay did not make was not a very good coach to begin with, but certainly on that particular afternoon, he wasn't wasn't at his best. Randy's got a bunch of questions here, so I'm just going to go through. Offense looks sluggish today. Yeah, I mean, I think they had a lot of opportunities, especially in the first period. I thought I think that if they would have beaten Wolf, maybe one or two more times in that first period, then I think the floodgates might have opened up a little bit. But I don't know if, yeah, I mean, they certainly got their chances. Save percentage for Dobish has gotten him where he is. Yeah, save percentage, goals saved above expected, a bunch of different things. Too much Corsi for a simple game of hockey. Not sure what you mean by that, Randy. Too much Corsi. Are you saying you don't like advanced stats, or are you saying that the Corsi numbers were high tonight? I'm not sure. Entertap, yeah, I mean, they acted on emotions, Entertap. I don't disagree. But I mean, it was a different time back then too. And I mean, Patrick Roy, I mean, we all know what kind of personality Patrick Roy has. And for those of you who are my age, you certainly know what kind of personality Mario Tremblay has. And so, they were both really emotional. Mario Tremblay was stupid for leaving Patrick Roy in the net the way he did. And Patrick Roy was a bit of a prima donna in the way that he responded to it. And they both got hurt feelings. And, instead of, being bigger men about it, they probably screamed and yelled at each other a little bit. And, just, the gap between the two of them got bigger and bigger and bigger. And there was really nowhere for him to go. Randy doesn't like advanced stats. I get that, Randy. I get that a lot of people don't like advanced stats, but they do tell a story. I don't think they tell the whole story, but I mean, for example, in a game like tonight, if you look at the Corsi, you could say you don't like Corsi, but if you hadn't watched the game, the Corsi will tell you the story of the game, right? It tells you, and they don't always, but for tonight, for example, they do, right? Corsi tells you that the Canadiens you didn't carry the play tonight. Calgary carried the play for the majority of the game. Therefore, the Corsi says that they possessed the puck and they directed more pucks towards the Montreal Canadiens net. So I don't love high danger chances because depending on who's judging what is and what isn't a high danger chance, those numbers can be skewed a little bit. But expected goals, if you have a good system for judging expected goals, that's usually a relatively accurate number that demonstrates the degree to which one team had more opportunities to score than the other. So tonight, I think you would agree with me that the expected goals being basically 3-2, right? 3.1 to 2.2. That Calgary would have been expected to have outscored Montreal tonight, right? We've already said that the Canadiens probably got a better result than they deserve. And if you go by expected goals, then you would expect that tonight the Calgary Flames would have won 3-2 based on that number. And I think we would all agree that probably, based on the way the game was played, would be the more accurate result. But again, they still have to play the game, And so, obviously the number that the only number that really counts is the number on the scoreboard, and that was 2-1 tonight. But again, the indication would be that, the reason the game ended up as 2-1 was because, the Canadiens were able to stop more goals than they would have expected to allow than the other team did, right? So Jakub Dobeš being 2 goals saved above expected, probably a big reason why the Canadiens came out with the victory tonight. The Atomic Blueberry, yes, that is why Mario Tremblay never had a coaching job again. Inexperienced. Not only was he inexperienced, he just didn't have the temperament to be. He doesn't. He's not a. He's not a very even-keeled person. He's not a level-headed guy. He should have never had the job in the first place, right? And the Canadiens went through a whole litany of we still see it in the NHL, right? Teams that go and hire former star players in positions that they're totally unqualified for. The Canadiens did it. Let's go through the list. Like, Mario Tremblay, Rejoignez-nous. Some people would argue that Bob Gainey was in a little bit over his head, as a GM. There's all kinds of guys who, around the NHL. The NHL is littered with guys who were given jobs because of their, on ice performances. And, just because you were a good hockey player doesn't mean you're going to be a good GM. And Mario Tremblay is probably the greatest example of that, as far as the Montreal Canadiens organization is concerned. But he's not by any means, he's not. Marc Bergevin, another good example. Marc Bergevin is not a good general manager. Not a former Canadian, I suppose, but it is what it is. Are you guys ready to hear the A-team? Should we get to the A-team? Well, yeah, Wayne Gretzky stayed on as coach. That's another aspect of things too, right? Superstar hockey players typically don't make good coaches. And I think, the logical reason for that is probably because they were so good at the game and so things came so naturally to them. It's hard for them to coach because they can't, it's hard for a guy like Wayne Gretzky to coach a guy like Arbor Jacki, right? Because they're on different planets when it comes to hockey. Arbor Jacki has to work very hard for everything that he gets, and it's a struggle. Whereas Wayne Gretzky was like, why can't you figure that out? Like, this is easy. Like, I knew this when I was 8 years old. Like, it's just it's a different world for them. Peanut butter whiskey, no peanut butter whiskey tonight. So there's the A-team for tonight, guys. So I think we're probably going to have some controversy because of the names that you guys put out there earlier. I don't disagree with any of the names you put out there earlier, Entertap and Randy. I think Matheson is a good choice. I think Slafkovsky would have been a really good choice tonight. Again, if you are a Juraj Slafkovsky hater or a detractor of Slafkovsky, then tonight there were a number of instances where I think the reason people don't like him is because he doesn't produce points the way they would like. Pardon me, guys. I got a frog in my throat here and I can't get it out. Juraj Slafkovsky does a lot of things that aren't reflected on the scoreboard, as far as helping those other guys. So anyways, Nick Suzuki, Ivan Demidov, Jakub Dobeš, and Arbor Jacki. Those are my choices for tonight. I know there's going to be some controversy about that. And in particular, I think some of you are going to disagree with me about Arbor Jacki. Nick Suzuki, again, just another solid game. Another point for Suzuki. I think he's got 11 on the season now. Again, just demonstrating how dominant he is as a centerman in the NHL, and making that conversation about what were we having conversation? Oh, he's not a real first line center. Um, I think he's making that conversation kind of silly day by day, right? It's obvious that he is, and anybody who thinks that he's not is kidding themselves or has another agenda of some kind. So Demidov, I think, had a solid game. Um, Obviously, the overtime, he was the architect of the overtime winner, and I didn't really have him in my A team until the very end of the game. I thought he had an okay game, or he had a good game, pardon me, but not one that. But then with the way he set up that overtime winner, I put him on the list. Jakub Dobesh, I think it's pretty easy to understand why he's on the list. 30, what did he make? 36 out of 37 shots tonight. Uh, he saved. Um, Again, he's looked good in every game he's played this year. Would I? I'm not prepared to name him the number one at this point, and I don't think the Canadiens are either. That said, I think he's earned the right to play more often, and as long as he continues to play this way, he'll continue to earn more opportunities. And I think it was always the Canadiens' intention to give him more starts as the backup than they gave the backup last year. Um, and his performance is, justifying that intention and allowing them to do that. Arbor Jacki, I just thought he had a solid game tonight. Against all odds. A guy who perhaps, he's obviously, on the bubble there. Before Gouli got hurt, he, would have been in and out of the lineup. With Gouli getting hurt, he and Struble are sort of placed in a difficult position where they're being asked to do more than they otherwise would. He played a little bit more tonight than he has in the past with 12 minutes and 16 seconds of ice time. And I thought he looked good, right? His 60%, 61% expected goals percentage or expected goals for percentage. So he's, on the ice for 0.55 expected goals and only 0.35 against. He looked good tonight. I know a lot of people, were maybe complaining about a couple of the breakout passes that he had were perhaps not as on the tape as some people would like. But overall, I thought he did really good. Ports, again, you don't know what you're talking about. If you think that advanced stats don't matter, you don't understand hockey. Like I get that you perhaps don't like them, but to say that they don't matter is you're foolish, right? I mean, if the idea of hockey is to keep the puck out of the net, a player who's on the ice, for fewer opportunities by the other team and more opportunities by his own team, that is a reflection of that player's performance, and it has value. Um, Pardon me, guys. Just got to take care of some business over here. Um, so yeah, so for me, Arbor Jacki, I thought had a solid game tonight. Again, there were some instances where I think there were a couple passes that weren't right on the tape, but overall, I thought he played solid under difficult circumstances. I don't know if you guys agree with me, if you think I'm crazy, but maybe I'm a little crazy. Uh, I think Calgary had to do with the bouncing pucks it always has. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Randy. Um, I mean, if you're suggesting that the puck was bouncing Calgary's way tonight, I don't know if I got that from tonight's game, but I think that Calgary played a solid game for a team that has struggled the way they have so far this year. They got solid goaltending from Dustin Wolf. I think things would have been very different if the Canadiens had been able to score 2 or 3 in that first period. I think it would have really, been hard for Calgary to continue continue to stick with the Canadiens if that had been the case. But I think that Wolf kind of gave them that that sort of that push that allowed them to sort of come through in the second and third period and be the better team. My doubts on Monty last week just showed what everyone was saying, and Dobesh earned his starts. Well, again, I mean, you say your doubts on Monty. I mean, Montembeault hasn't played. He's had 4 starts. I would say that in 2 of those starts he struggled. One of those starts he was okay, and the other one he was good. So I mean, we're very early in the season. So again, I mean, I don't know what your doubts are about. I'm not prepared to erase, Montembeault's entire record based on 4 starts, or even 2 starts, I guess, if you want to argue that only 2 of them were really that poor. I think that he, I'm not prepared to say that he's not a good goalie based on those starts. Has Dobesh been better? Absolutely. Dobesh has been fantastic. But just because Dobesh has been fantastic doesn't mean that, Montembeault has been bad. So, it's, the 2 of them are going to continue to be Montembeault number 1 and Dobesh number 2. And, as long as Dobesh continues to play the way he has, he's going to get a lot of starts, right? And maybe even go 50-50, right? But, you're not turning the number 1 job over to a guy who's played 20 games in the NHL, right? You're not, taking the job away from your veteran starting goalie to give it to a rookie with, that little experience. Frank, why did I mute you on my live TikTok? You really don't know? Why don't you tell me why you think I muted you on my live TikTok? And if you get it right, I'll unmute you on TikTok. We will see Monty tomorrow in Edmonton. We will. I believe Marty St. Louis was asked about that, and he confirmed that the start would go to Montembeault. And I think that only makes sense. I think that Dobesh was going to play one of the 2 games in Calgary and Edmonton. I frankly, I thought Montembeault would play tonight, and that Dobesh would play tomorrow, and then you would, whoever was better, you would probably play them on Saturday. But it is what it is, and I think that's basically what's going to happen. I think it's more likely that I don't know who you're going to see on Saturday. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, I mean, 50-50. I mean, Randy, you say that 50-50 will not make Monty number 1. Again, I didn't say that they would be 50-50. I said that if he continues to play the way he had, they could get to 50-50. But I think that I think you're wrong on that. I think that to be the number 1, there needs to be a level of there needs to be a kind of declaration from the team, right? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, for, it's more than just, okay, well, you played more games than that. Like, it's in, we've already talked about how coaches get comfortable and have, comfort levels with different players and different lines and whatever. It's, it's when you become the number 1, when in the coach's mind, you're his go-to guy, right? You're his go-to guy. He feels more comfortable with you. Or he's, where he's prepared to sort of, there's almost like a public statement of you being the number 1. Monty has double the amount of goals let in, a way worse record, and Dobesh has just started games back to back. It's not crazy to say at this point. Well, it is crazy, right? There's a big difference between, getting more starts. There's a big difference between that and being named the number 1. It's crazy to think that the Canadiens are going to declare or announce or say that Dobesh is the number 1 goalie. He's played 20 games in the NHL. He's a rookie, and Sam Montembeault was a top 10 goalie in the NHL last year and has been the Canadian starter for, the better part of 2.5 years now. So, the idea that they're going, I don't have a problem with Dobesh getting more starts, and I think you're going to see that. But the idea that they're going to declare him the number one and give him the quote unquote number one job is silly. I mean, it doesn't make sense because first of all, you run the risk of alienating or hurting the confidence of your number one guy. And the idea that Dobesh is going to continue this run for the entire season, what if he doesn't? What if you announce that Dobesh is your number one and Montembeault, somehow that hurts his confidence. And then, in a week or two, Dobesh comes back down to earth. Now you've got two goalies that are struggling, right? No, that's not why, Frank. So sorry, you didn't get it right. I think you know why I blocked you. Um, but I think you're playing dumb. But I'm just saying that Dobesh play is better than Monty. Dobesh poke checking the puck off Calgary player was nice. I don't see Monty doing that. Yeah, but again, I think that people underestimate how conservative coaches are in the NHL. Right? Marty St. Louis is not watching that game and saying, "Oh, well, that was a nice poke check by Dobesh. I don't think Montembeault would do that. I think I need to, like, there's a lot, they're a lot slower to make that kind of big decision on such a small sample size." So we're worried about hurting people's feelings. This is the big league. Start the better goalie. Well, okay. Um, I think you're playing that. You're what's the way to say this? You're setting that up in a way to make your argument look better. But we're worried about winning games and we're worried about doing what's best for the team, right? And what's best for the team is having two goalies that are comfortable and confident in their game and their ability to play, right? That's what we're worried about. We're worried about winning games. We're worried about being, I'm talking as if I'm the coach now, but we're worried about what's best for this team and what is most likely to win in the long term, right? It's not about what's best for us to win tonight or what's best for us to win tomorrow. It's what's best for us to win over the long term. So yeah, if you're playing one game and it's one game for the rest of your life, you don't really give a shit about all that other stuff. But if you've got a team and your job is to win and make the playoffs and go as far in the playoffs as you possibly can, then it's in your best interest to uh, keep things on an even keel. And right, you judge you maybe that Sam Montembeault has nerves of steel and he's not going to get upset by this, and you don't really care, and he's a guy who can handle all of this additional pressure and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is it's not in your best interest. Your best interest is to have two goalies who are playing well and are confident and are able to produce and be good goalies for your team. I don't think you're hearing me, Tristan. I agree with you. If you're worried about winning games, Dobesh is undefeated. Yes, but we're not talking about winning one game. We're not talking about winning two games. We're talking about what's best for the team, going forward over the long term. Frank, listen, man. Here's what you did. And again, I know you're playing dumb here. You're either dumb or you're playing dumb. I'm not sure which. So you came on the live and you mentioned 4 times about the fact that my feed on my IPTV was slow, was behind yours. You told me I should watch the game on Sportsnet instead of on RDS because my feed was slow. I told you it had nothing to do with me watching RDS. It was because I was watching it on an IPTV. And because it's on an IPTV, it's going to be slow regardless of what network I watch on. Then you repeated it again and again and again. And then finally I told you, listen, Frank, there's nothing I can do about it. Why don't you just a goal? Because you knew that my feed was slow, right? You knew my feed was slow, and then you started talking about things that were happening in the game before they happened on my TV screen because you were being a jerk, right? Because you, for whatever reason, you wanted to talk about how my feed was slow on my IPTV. Right after I told you that, listen, there's nothing I could do about it, and asked you to move on from it, you kept bringing it up. And beyond that, you started to do spoilers where you talked about things that were happening in the game before I was able to see them. You know that's why I muted you, because I didn't want you to do any more spoilers. You know that's why I muted you. And now you're coming on here playing all sad and puppy dog because you're upset that I muted you. So again, I didn't want to get into all of this, but because you won't let it go, now I have. Okay? So if you want to play dumb and be the little oh woe is me, then that's fine. But that's why I muted you. You know that's why I muted you, and now you've made me say it in front of everybody. Let's talk hockey. Yes, I agree, Randy. Let's talk hockey. Um, so what about, does everybody? I assume that because nobody commented on the A team, that everybody agrees with me, other than Randy and Entertap. But um, there they are, guys. Nick Suzuki, Ivan Demidov, Jakub Dobesh. We've been live for almost an hour here now. We're going to probably shut things down. I hate to shut it down on that note, but does anybody else have any other questions, comments we talk about? Uh, it's not because Montembeau is older, Tristan. It's because he is the guy. He's gotten you here. He's the guy who has been your number one, and in order to lose the number one job, it has to happen in a certain way, right? You don't lose your job because a guy had three good starts, right? You don't lose your job 7 games into the season, or 8 games, I guess now. That's all I'm trying to say, right? You don't pull the trigger that quickly. How about Gallagher on the A team? Uh I mean, Gallagher played well. I think that whole line played well. I mean, Gallagher's always going to be a guy who gives you everything that he has, right? Like Gallagher is a great player. He's a heart and soul kind of guy. He puts an effort in every shift. Like, you know what you're getting from Gallagher. I mean, Gallagher is a perfect example of those guys that Marty St. Louis feels really comfortable about, right? He can put him on the ice at any given time, in any given situation, and while he knows, maybe he's not going to get the same type of offensive production out of Gallagher, or skill and talent that he might from some other guys. He also knows that Gallagher's not gonna, make a ton of mistakes. And yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Randy. Like like somebody asked about that line earlier. The Jake Evans line, right? And that's they're a line who you can put out there, and they're not gonna hurt you. And every once in a while, they're gonna put the puck in the net, right? We saw that last year from those guys, right? When the team was really struggling, especially in the first half of the season, they were they were the they carried the team in a lot of ways. Jake Evans got hot. Gallagher, had 21 goals last year. Josh Anderson was pretty solid. Bye, Frank. You have to give Dobesh at least 50% of the starts. Okay. I mean, I don't think you have to, but I think at this point, I think you're probably going to see them rotate them, you know, one for one. I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's, you know, I think that, I mean, again, things could change, right? In a week from now, Montembeault could go out tomorrow and pitch a 40 save shutout. And, Dobesh could struggle on Saturday or whatever. Like, it's just, I get it. Like, where they are right now, I agree with you. I think poor Frank. That's okay, Frank. Where they are now, I think, you're at that stage where they do go 50-50 or even more in favor of Dobesh, right? But, again, where are we going to be in a month, right? Right, where are we going to be in a month? What defines you mean what? I think what you're trying to say, Tristan, is the number one. I mean, they're both starters, right? They both start. I think you're asking me what defines number one. I think, to me, like I said earlier, to me the number one is like, you're the number one until the coach says you're not the number one. Now, I mean, obviously, if you start 5 games in a row or 6 games in a row or whatever, that. But to me, like, it's Sam Montembeault's the number one on this team. Period. Like, it's just not. They're not. Here's how I'll put it to you. I'm having a hard time expressing this, but here's how I'll put it to you. If Marty St. Louis walked into your living room right now and you said to him, Marty, who's your number one goalie? What do you think he would say? Let's take that a step further. If Jakub Dobesh walked into your living room right now and you asked him who was the number one starter, what do you think he would say? Well, I never said Dobesh was a one-start wonder. What I said was that he's a rookie with 20 games of experience. Right? He's a rookie with very little experience, and you're not going to hand over the number one job to a rookie like that. It's not like we're talking about, we're not. It's not like it's Caden Primo is the other goalie who struggled mightily a lot. We're talking about a guy who's been the starter for the Canadiens for some time now, and who, while he's had a slow start to the season, was excellent last year. So, I agree that they're going to. I don't think we're going to see them make a change based on that short sample size. Well, again, Tristan, what I'm trying to express here to you, I agree with you that Dobesh is humble and probably wouldn't say that, but what it also demonstrates is how the concept of number one goalie works in pro hockey, right? Dobesh would not presume to claim the number one job even if he were getting more of the starts, right? That's what I mean by the number one goalie. Right. And I'm not suggesting for a second that it can't evolve into that, right? I'm not suggesting for a second that if Dobesh continues to play the way that he has, that can't turn into him getting the majority of the starts, or even potentially somewhere down the road, turning into him getting the number one job, or Marty St. Louis coming out and saying, Jakub Dobesh is now our number one goalie. But I don't see I don't see Sam Montembeault losing his number one job because Jakub Dobeš plays really well. I see Sam Montembeault losing his number one job because he doesn't play well. Right? If that makes sense. Well, again, yeah. I mean, maybe I'm not expressing it well, Tristan, and maybe you're not understanding it well, and it's probably because I'm not explaining it well. But I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's right. And as I said, I think that even if he were getting the majority of the starts, if you had Marty St. Louis in your living room, he would tell you that the number one is still Sam Montembeault. So let's agree to disagree on that. I think you're wrong on that. Personally, I think that history tells us that that's not the case. Obviously, I understand your thought process on that. That yeah, if you get more than 50% of the starts, you're technically the number one. But in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of the team and how the team is, you know, you know, operates, that's not how it works. Well, Montemo hasn't played well, but he hasn't played badly enough to lose his job, Tristan. Right? There's a difference between not playing well or not playing as well as the other guy, but it's not like he's played 20 games and stunk it up. He's got 4 starts. It's 4 games, one of which he played quite well in. Right? One of which he played quite well in, one of which he played okay, and 2 in which he didn't play that well. What's up, Hunter? So again, he's not losing his job on that. I'm just, again, I think we can move on from this. I think we've beaten this horse until it's beyond dead. Obviously we're not going to agree, but I mean, I think again, I'm not, you're expressing your opinion, and I get that, and I'm expressing my opinion, but I think I'm not trying to express an opinion. I'm trying to tell you what I think the team is going to do, and I think history will show, or we'll see down the road what the team does. I think that Dobesh will continue to get more starts. But as far as the team, publicly announcing or saying that Sam Montembeault is no longer our number one and Dobesh is our number one, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Yes, yes, Hunter. Demidov with a beautiful assist on that goal. Yeah, it was a spectacular way to end the game. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to be it for tonight. It's getting late here. It's almost 2 in the morning. Good chat, good conversation tonight. I thought we did. We had a fun chat about a number of different topics. Unfortunately, Frank is going to suck and go home. But it is what it is. Nothing you can do. I'm sorry, Frank, if that's the way you feel. But I think you're being a bit of a baby about it. But let's move on. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. C'était une bonne émission. J'ai beaucoup aimé parler avec vous. Thank you very much, guys. I had a good conversation. Perhaps I got a little upset there. Just over, anyways, it is what it is. Forget it. Thanks so much for coming by. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comments. I apologize if I did get a little off track there at one point. My apologies for that. But I do hope you enjoyed things. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so down below. If you want to hit that notification bell, that would be great as well. Give us a thumbs up if you do enjoy the content. Give us a thumbs down if you don't enjoy the content. I'm fine with that as well. But it's been great talking to you guys. Another great night for the Canadiens. Canadiens are 6-2. Things are looking pretty positive. Again, we're talking. It's funny that Canadiens fans will find something negative to talk about even when things are going really really well, right? Like the whole world is I watched Star and D'Amico today talk about how desperate the Canadiens are to get a 2C, and it's like, well, they're not desperate. the team's 6-2. Everything's okay, right? The world's not falling apart around this team. It's not like, they're getting their heads caved in every night. I think they're doing pretty good. So, yeah, let's be positive. The Canadiens are winning. The Canadiens are 6-2. At this point last year, they were certainly not 6-2. Things are looking up. There's obviously room for improvement. Tonight we saw a team that, didn't play the greatest game, but managed to get a win. And hopefully tomorrow we see a team that plays a more complete 60-minute game. So, merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening or morning if you're in Nova Scotia like I am. We will see you in the next one. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Gertie. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Hunter, Entertap, Fitness King 101. Who else we got here tonight? I think that's pretty much it for tonight. It was great talking to all of you. Rocky had a comment as well. Bushy was here as well. And, of course, Hexy, our good friend Hexy. So enjoy the rest of your night, guys. I will see you. I don't know if I'm going to do a show tomorrow night. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on whether I want to stay up till all hours of the night. The game tomorrow, obviously, I think it starts even an hour later than tonight's game did. So we'll see whether I've got it in me to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning to do a show. But if so, I'll see you then. If not, I'll see you Saturday. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.